Okay, first full week back, and things, to say the least, have started picking up. Oh, shit. So let's start with with classes because I'm a student, and isn't aren't wouldn't you say classes are the most important thing to start off with? Yeah. So currently I'm in four techs. Yes, this is absolutely insane. And I think my sanity is gonna die. But for now we're in four techs. These four classes are are the following: signals and systems, integrated circuits plus digital design, algorithms, and then computability plus complexity. So let's start with the first one I told, signals and systems. I really want to take this class because one Professor Kananura Chandran's teaching it, and he's like absolutely goaded. Like I have the actual patience to sit through 2 hours of his lecture, like literally. He's great, and I feel like this class. I my vibe is that it's not immediately applicable, but it's something that you can very much use later on almost anywhere because hey, signals are everywhere. Your phones, your tablets, your Bluetooth, hell, even airplanes, even like basically everywhere. Signals are like everywhere. And then the idea of the class is you have an input signal. There's a system that will transform this input signal into something else, aka the output signal. And yeah, and just so you know, and another interesting thing to know was signals and systems, both of these are actually functions of time or some time, maybe frequency as well, but yeah. And the next class is EECS 151, which is integrated circuits and digital design. So my thoughts on this class, it's been moving a little too slowly. Like the lectures have basically just been course content and then like just some history. Like history is interesting, obviously, but like you don't need to spend two lectures on that stuff, especially when you got a lab that I could probably use the previous lectures to help me, especially on this new thing called Verilog, which is hardware description language. Like having some lectures on Verilog could definitely help me in the future. I'll say, yeah. And this class I've heard is very useful if you want to go into FPGA or ASIC design. Like I think there was this person who came to our campus and literally said, if you take this class and do well in it, like every fucking hardware place and company is gonna look for you. Okay, okay, maybe that might be a little extreme, but it does seem like this class is really useful. And that's why even a lot of CS majors I know are taking it. But if I take this class, I know it's going to have to be a lot of work. We're going to probably be spending at least 20 hours a week, maybe even more if we want a successful project at the end. So we're done with EE. Now let's move on to the CS classes. So these two CS classes are the two classes that I actually want to take. But by taking it, I'm kind of putting myself into what I would call a very open and new world because EE is something I would say my family's basically been doing EE since like I think my like literally my entire family has is like engineers. But CS is a very new field, but I feel like I might actually be more CS, might have more of a CS brain than a hardware brain if you talk to me perhaps. But that's beside the point. We're going into what the class are. Fission algorithm, CS 170. People call this like the bedrock of CS in addition to OS because this is because you need a the way need what I would call call how to think. And CS 170 is literally the class that teaches you how to think. You have to craft an algorithm that can run in certain constraints, both time and space, and then you have to also describe your algorithm, like how Like, why is there this runtime and how does it solve the problem? And then, yeah, so there's this three part that says, is it correct? What is its runtime and can we do better? Yes, I took that right off the lecture, but hey. Next, and then the final class, which is CS172, I should probably be waiting to take this class, but hey, but like, Professor Abhishek Tal is just absolutely goaded. And this class is not going to be offered very much like CS170, which basically every CS major almost has to take. CS172 is about computability and complexity, which basically you're trying to investigate whether if I give you a problem, can you solve it and can you solve it in polynomial time? Like if you're worse than polynomial time, aka exponential time, which means which means like so exponential time basically just means if your input goes from like if your input increases by one, you will like double. And you know how fast doubling gets. So yeah. And then I remember briefly there was this thing called a halting problem, which basically means if you can reduce something to a halting problem, it's not computable. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, but hey. And then now let's get to some non like academic stuff. The main thing for me that's non academic is basically going to be swim because I like to stay healthy. I like to work out. I've been doing it all my life, and if and it's like I have a club right here. If I need to work out anyways, why don't I just join a swim club? And yeah. So this past week, I did two practices. I did two practices with him, and then one kind of on my own. Probably should have gone to more practices because that's not what a committed athlete does. But hey, I went. Sets were pretty brutal. Like I think we literally were doing. I think some of the guys were literally doing fucking 75s on like 55, then 105, 875s, 55 and 105 interval. Which, if you want to know how crazy that is, I myself pull like 54s at the beginning. So having to go on like 55-second interval and then afterwards only getting like 10 extra seconds of getting like not that much rest afterwards, that is quite brutal to say the least. And and I remember some parts of this set where I was trying to pull and I just was getting absolutely nowhere because like my I think my arms were just like dead, literally. And then if that wasn't enough, I think we I don't know exactly the amount. We did like 1250s where you did like a 40-second interval and then you did a minute interval. Like you could tell the 40-second interval was really painful. That is if you even end up making the interval given how tired you are by that point. And then we did 100 pull. Well, that was bad, I'll say. 1,300 yards of pulling. And I was like, this is literally killing me. Yeah, yeah. But hey, first splash week is tough. Hopefully, if I keep training like this, such hard sets will become better and better for me. And the reason why I'm doing these sets, you might be like, hey, why don't you just like go swim like a little bit? Well, the thing is, I got two 200s that I want to do this season. I can talk a little more about it in a separate video, but yeah, I want to train. I think training is good. Yeah. And then one last thing I'll talk about is I want to build an activity tracker. So the idea that I tried doing but I ultimately gave up is every week you kind of say how much time you're spending doing activity X, Y, Z. Like how much time are you spending, sleeping, eating? Well, that's pretty consistent. Like you say I spent like 10 hours on E120 and then I spent like probably 15 hours on X151. And within like let's say that 10 hours of I did probably went to lecture for 3 hours and I did a discussion and then I did my homework which took me like probably 4 hours that week. And then I probably also put in can add a like a little buffer time For example, I could say I what's a good example? Yeah, I could probably say that I was like reading a textbook or trying to study for an exam. Yeah, all that stuff. That's kind of the idea of the time tracker. So because college you have all this time, but no one tells you how to manage this time. And if you just decide, oh, I'm going to wait until like dead week to start studying, and then yeah, it doesn't end well. I've experienced it, and it really doesn't end well. So that's it. That is going to be my entire talk about what happened this week. Separate videos, I can talk about like swimming techniques and all that stuff. But that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe, and see you next time.